Hello and welcome to the 43 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. This evening's episode brought to us by our good friends at S2 Cognition. S2 Cognition delivers a revolutionary approach to helping athletes understand how in-game decisions impact their performance from youth levels all the way to the pros. It's about swing decisions, and it's about getting an assessment on how you're doing with your swing decisions. I can promise you this, you make bad swing decisions, and you will end up like Coach Rooney, which means in coaching at age 23. Make better swing decisions, extend your playing career. S2 can help you with that. We're also brought to us by our good friends at Pitch Logic. Saw the great Larry Sorensen at the ABCA this weekend. This is the system used by players, coaches, scouts, and instructors at all levels of play, from youth leagues to the big leagues. It's easy to use, affordable technology, makes the platform accessible to every player at every level. All the metrics and features used at the highest level. See pitchlogic.com for more information. Speaking of people operating at the highest level, I am joined by the great Kendall J. Rogers and also Zebby Barrels, Aaron J. Fitt. Gentlemen, good evening. Salutations.
We're going to have a question. Speaking
Yes.
of bad decisions, how many bad decisions did you make at ABCA over the weekend?
I would say none. I don't live in that world, Kendall. Like I get on to the next day, try to win the next at bat, the next pitch. The thing we're going to talk about in a second is your favorite conversations from the ABCA. I made so many great decisions. I have unlimited fun conversations to chat about. It was so great.
Well, I have a lot of sources, and I heard a rumor that you were sitting crisscross applesauce in the middle of the lobby floor at one point.
So
Did I hear that right?
That's how is crisscross applesauce like Indian style? Is that what they?
Yeah, it's Indian style. These days in school, you can't say that. So yeah, you got to say.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Crisscross
Applesauce. Thank you. So that is true. Both days, I blame Ryan Brownlee for that because there's no place to sit when you're eating lunch. So I would grab my little sandwich and I would walk down outside the trade show and I would sit crisscross applesauce and eat my sandwich and mind my own business and then get back to the business of enjoying the convention. So yeah.
Well, I will say that Coach Rooney was responsible for multiple peer pressure scenarios that negatively affected my sleep. I was looking at my sleep numbers from the weekend. They were not great. And it's mostly your fault. And I will say this, that the last night I had to abandon you. I was waiting for you. I was trying to drag you out of our engagement at the end of the night.
Compete.
It just wouldn't happen. I just had to give up on you. And I hated to do it, Rudes, but I had no choice.
Fitzy, I thought your effort was great. I think that, my attitude towards the convention is we can sleep when we're dead. Like we're not there to sleep. Kendall, may I turn the tables on you? Like your effort now the annual D1 dinner at Old Hickory was amazing. That dinner is epic. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. But outside of that, KR, what do you have to say for yourself? Did you even see 11 o'clock at night?
I did. So I did drop by to, say congratulations to Virginia coach Brian O'Connor, who's inducted to the Hall of Fame.
Well said.
But I might have lasted about 8 minutes. As I get older, I realize that having wine, bourbon, and beer all in a 3-hour span is not a good idea.
That's
even though you only have like one. I had like one drink, but like
3-pitch mix. Kendall.
Boy, I feel very sleepy. So it was a D performance, but we got a lot accomplished. It was good to see a lot of familiar faces. I think Aaron says this, every year, right after ABCA, but it does really feel like that event is kind of like the start of college baseball season.
Yes.
When you see all the coaches and the clinics and things like that. So it was another great event.
It is energizing. I always kind of like crawl into it, kind of feeling sluggish after the holidays. And it's like, oh my God, we only have 35 days left or whatever. Like we got all this content to pump out for the season preview. Oh my God, how are we going to get it done? And then you go to ABCA and you have a bunch of great college baseball conversations and you get your juices flowing. And I came back fired up, guys, energized. And I'm getting after it all week, baby. Let's go. It's a springboard.
Kendall, you got to do your Howard Dean too.
Howard Dean. Kendall, you kick us off. What was your favorite singular conversation of the ABCA?
I think the biggest thing for me was like the amount of coaches and whatnot who texted me after the Division I business meeting, because we had another meeting to go to during that, but you and Joe were at that. How many people kind of reached out to ask what in the hell the KPI was? which I had actually never heard of the KPI. So
Kyle Peters
I think,
index, right?
Yeah, Kevin Palga. I don't even know how you pronounce it, but yeah, we kind of, they kind of threw that on us. I feel like the NCAA every once in a while, the committee, I don't say the NCAA as a whole, but the committee always kind of randomly throws those kind of things on you at times. And that was one of those instances. But that really is kind of the only thing that created a lot of conversation. I think the other thing too is it seems like a lot of coaches, when you talk to them about their teams, it seems like a lot of coaches are like cautiously optimistic. I thought like cautiously optimistic was the best way to describe a lot of teams. And frankly, guys, as we went through our top 25 rankings, and we'll have a lot more on that on Tuesday of next week. But as we went through our top 25 rankings, it really does look like it was one of those years where, I mean, there are what we consider like 4, 5, 6, maybe elite teams. But guys, like outside of that, I mean, college baseball this year, I'm not sure there's been a year that we go into that is this wide open. And it seemed like a lot of coaches felt that way about their team. Like, oh, you know what? I think we're going to be really good in this spot, but like, I don't know about this. And it's not always like that.
Yep. I think that's well said. The transfers make it really hard to predict things too. It's just like, how's it gonna play at the next place, etc. The KPI thing, I'm really fighting to be open-minded to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I feel like, let me say this. The thing I don't know, and maybe you guys do, is what I would like to know, if the NCAA wants to be a little bit more transparent, is can you give us an example of what a team sheet looks like in the room? Because when I hear KPI, what I hear is that this committee, which is already so overwhelmed, they need more numbers, like they need a hole in their face. Like I want, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so pumped up about DSR, is because they can give you, hey, here are the top 5 games that this team won. Like you can go to the committee and say, hey, their top 5 wins are blank. Their worst 5 losses are blank. Like you can put it on paper.
Mm-hmm.
You can show them a graph of the trajectory of the team. And maybe RPI and KPI and MRI and ABC and I don't know, whatever metric, the Fitt's metric, maybe there's one of those now. Maybe all those things can do that. But show me a team sheet, NCAA, so I can, because right now, like I want KPI involved in this. I don't know.
I would say that. I would say this too, and I'm glad you mentioned the DSR. I think we all kind of entered the partnership of 643 charts on DSR. With a lot of thoughts. I think we're open-minded, but we also had our own thoughts. But I think going to the ABCA, I was very curious to see what the coaches thought about it, and whether it was Jim Schlossnagle at A&M or John Savage at UCLA or some other coaches. It seemed like the feedback on that was very, very positive. So I know there's some kind of movement in the weeds a little bit with some of the committee members, maybe get on a call and talk about the DSR, but that is a ranking system that a lot of coaches that actually were able to kind of see their progression chart as a club at the ABCA convention, looked at that and were like, actually, like, I really, really like this. So I'm kind of curious to see if that event is kind of the springboard for the DSR.
And I'll throw in a few things here. I think first of all, boy, it's really encouraging to see that they're actually, even set DSR aside for a minute. It's encouraging to see that they're actually looking at ways to tweak, to change the process, right? And
that's a great point.
I don't know anything about KPI like that. They sprung that on me. I was like, what the heck is that? I never heard of it before. I still need to learn more about it. I read the description of it. It didn't really explain very much, like exactly how it works. But if in fact this is like a good system, it might be. I have no idea, but like I welcome them not just leaning on the one thing that we know is flawed, and so that is to me is a sign of progress. Like we've talked for years, the committee has talked last few years about how they need to find a better system, and now, hey, like we're trying stuff, right? Like that's great. That shows to me that's progress. And I also give them credit for, basically changing the tier structure, which we all understand that this does not affect your actual RPI ranking, that, your record against the tiers is baked into the RPI. So it's a little redundant, but that said, these are things that we use. Like every year when we're doing the Nerdcast, we talk about records against top 50, top 100, whatever. They're basically just kind of reframing that is the goal here. So like your top 50 wins at home are equivalent to your top 75 wins on the road, or whatever it is. Those things are equivalent. So you're just kind of weighting you're just kind of changing basically the way that you perceive those victories. And I think that's a good thing. I don't think it's like a panacea. It's still, the RPI is still flawed, but I do think that when it comes to perception and the process, I think this is a positive step.
Yeah, I think it's fair, Fitzy. I think everything you said is right. Like where the bottom line is we're being open-minded to different things. Now, if I'm going to nitpick and be frustrated, I would say RPI is a ham sandwich on white bread. Terrible. KPI and these other things are a ham sandwich on wheat bread right now. Like it's like, okay, I'm glad we changed the bread. And you're right. I need to focus on at least we changed something, right? We've been eating ham on white for 20 years. It's garbage. No offense to the ham on white people out there, but
can we mix in some mustard at least? Like just ham on white with no
tomato. Is tomato too much to ask, Fitzy? Like mix in a pickle for God's sakes. Runes,
are you a Miracle Whip kind of guy?
No, not a.
Just out of curiosity, I've always.
Yeah, no, I'm a more like a Dijon mustard person. Yeah, give me the spicy mustard.
I'm with
you. Too much elegance as a Philly guy.
Yeah, let me say this too, like to put a bow on this part of it. Hey, I like Craig Kylitz. I thought did a nice job in his talk. The ABCA is trying like crazy. I think we all know what's really happening in college sports right now. The top of the house is on fire. And we're not the penthouse, right? We know who we are in baseball. And until the fire in the penthouse is put out, we're kind of just going to have to do our thing the best we can. It was really encouraging that the metrics were so strong for the postseason. I think it's really encouraging the NCAA re-upped with ESPN for a number that's 3x of the old number. That tells us that all the Olympic sports are doing a great job. So I think there's a lot to be positive about. There's a lot of momentum in the sport. And changes that we want to see, like the fact that we're still, like doing waivers for the 40-man roster is pretty ridiculous, but it is what it is, right? Like until the penthouse fire is done, we're not going to be able to make crazy changes, I don't think.
Yeah. And speaking of that, it sounds like the student athlete, the student athlete education or something committee. I can't remember what the E stands for. They met over the last couple of days about some of those roster caps and things like that. They're continuing to study it. There may be a resolution on that for sure in June on terms of a permanent structure. Runes, and also postseason wise, there are 3 new committee members for 2024. I don't think we actually wrote that on the site. I tweeted it out last week. But the Indiana's Scott Dolson, Florida State's Michael Offord, East Carolina's John Gilbert are the 3 new committee members. I think there's one more spot open. And we actually do not have an SEC representative on the committee right now. That? So a lot of scuttlebutt that the last member will be an SEC representative.
Guys, how about the ACC getting a voice in the room? Holy cow!
Love it,
incredible,
love it. Hey, before we transfer over, boys, give me like your favorite person, like not favorite person, like the funnest bump into a person. I'll give you guys a couple examples. Like Chris Mihalik was my teammate at Notre Dame, pitched in the big leagues briefly. He left-handed pitcher. He's the AAA pitching coach for the Colorado Rockies. Saw him totally out of the blue. Fitzy, we spent time with the Troy coaching staff, which was just a blast. All the people we saw at Brian O'Connor's, Brian O'Connor in the Hall of Fame. I'll kick you guys off, and then I want your favorite conversation. I got to bump into Mark Johnson. 52 years
wow.
He's been the head coach at Cherry Creek High School in Denver, Colorado. We got to coach his son Tyler at ASU. Tyler is a pastor in the Phoenix area now. Just incredible family, incredible people. Coach Johnson once had a high school team. Coach J, as everyone calls him. He had 5 big leaguers on one high school team in the mid-90s in Denver, Colorado. Darnell McDonald was an outfielder for them. John Burke, who went to Florida, was a pitcher. David Ardsma, Rice, Brad Lidge, and Josh Bard, who played at Texas Tech. All 5 of those kids were on a high school team, and they almost won 6 state titles in a row. And anyway, he's the most incredible person. Very fun follow on Twitter. He does a positive thought every day. So seeing Coach J made my weekend. So
that's great.
Fitzy, you got one?
You kind of touched on my probably favorite hangouts this weekend, other than the D1 gang, of course.
Given
the hanging with that Troy staff.
So
whatever.
great.
What is that? Friday night, whatever it was, Thursday. That was a blast. Those
Friday
guys
night, Saturday morning.
Yeah, those guys are a lot of fun. And their energy is contagious. I already thought that. Like I've enjoyed hanging out with them when I've stopped in there in the fall, and It's easy to see why that program is trending up. And then, the Brian O'Connor after party was a lot of fun, swapping stories with those guys about, they've been there 20 years, and like,
incredible.
For me, it's one of those things. It's kind of like Vanderbilt, right? Like, my whole career, basically, it started at the same time as O'Connor's first year at Virginia. And so, like, my whole career is watched that program just take off. And it's just, they've been basically a constant throughout those 2 decades. And, to kind of relive it, just go through, we're talking about the super regional against UC Irvine, the crazy thing there. That was a blast. And then Paul Maneri was there, of course. I always enjoy catching up with Coach Maneri, and he had a lot of great stories too. So that night was definitely a highlight.
Awesome. Kendall, what's one that stands out for you?
Yeah, it was good to run into John Savage and Dave Esker like right off the bat. I'm pretty sure that Coach Savage does not age. I let him know that. Like, he still looks the same as he did like 15 years ago. But I was giving him a hard time because they were kind of talking in the corner of the lobby. And I asked them if they were talking about the new Big Ten ACC alliance or something like that. And they both just laughed and shook their heads. So it was good to chat with those guys for a little while.
Yep. I'll give you guys one more, and then let's get to some transfers and some freshmen. Sure. Greg Lovelady was there. Fitzy, you and I bumped into him. And I just want to say out loud, bravo, man. Like that must be really hard. College baseball has matured to the point where coaches get let go. Like, it's going to, like, if you can get through your career without being not renewed or terminated, that's going to be rare, and for Greg Lovelady to have the courage to show, I was trying to think about that. Like, how would I feel if I was him on Tuesday before the convention, knowing that I want to coach again and I need to be there. But that's tough. And I just applaud that courage. And I think Greg, I think we all think Love is an excellent coach. He was tremendous at Wright State. Yeah. They had really good moments. Hey, if we have a field of 72, Greg Lovelady's probably still the coach at UCF, right? They probably pop a couple of those regionals. Yeah. And anyway, I thought I was really impressed by that. I thought that was really cool of him to be there and makes you really root for him,
Oh yeah. And he'll be back, in a really good job. I would think this summer. Like, he's too good not to be hired again. He's very young still, he's still what, I don't know, early mid 40s. Like, he got a lot of good years ahead of him. He's a sharp guy. And I agree with you. That was impressive. And, and I'll say this too. We were talking to him and Danny Hall walked by, another Hall of Famer. That's a guy who's been there for 30 years at Georgia Tech, right? It's incredible the run he's had. Also into the Hall of Fame, this week with Brian O'Connor and Jim Morris. So big ACC Hall of Fame weekend there at the ABCA.
Yeah, incredible. I wrote down all these names, like seeing Chip Baker there, the big shooter, and just, oh man, we're so blessed. Like, that's one of the things that there's so many great people in our sport, and it makes it just so fun. And gosh, it was that event is so awesome. So very good. All right, boys, let's get to some. As we turn the page and we're deep into writing previews and getting ready for the season, one of the pieces that was out was we ranked the transfer classes. Now, transfer means junior college and 4-year transfers, 1 through 25. Those are all out there right now.
Yes.
Yep, those are all out. So, Kendall, you start us off. What was one transfer class? Maybe you wrote the piece, maybe you didn't. One transfer class that jumped out at you.
Yeah, I'm going to go with TCU. I think you probably thought I was going to go with A&M routes that they're in the top 5. But the thing about TCU that I really like is, they have a lot of key pieces back this year. But I think Peyton Tolley, getting him was a huge addition for that program. I think he's a guy that, ironically enough, has a chance to end up being their closer. If Bennett Belt moves the rotation, they're actually pretty comfortable moving him to the closer role, which is interesting. I think he'll end up as a weekend starter and then a DH and a DH role offensively. But you're talking about a guy, 90, 93 from the left side. Pretty good breaking stuff. Offensively, the day I was in Fort Worth, it was light tower power. It was Luke Baker-like. And frankly, his physique is very Luke Baker-like. So I just love that addition. I love two-way guys. And I think, in terms of, just what he brings to the table from a consistency standpoint, both areas, I think he's going to be a big-time get for them. And then Ben Hampton, he's a really interesting pitcher because, if you look at his numbers overall at West Virginia, they're not incredible, right? But he's a kid he's pitched, I think it's over 450, 500 innings in college baseball in his career. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, just getting that amount of innings, that amount of experience, and an older guy who's a leader type in your clubhouse like that. I think that I just think that's a really good get for them. So, Zach Collier, a junior college transfer, I think is going to have a chance to really help them at the back end of the bullpen. And so I like, TCU's, transfer class wasn't huge or, significant like some of these other ones, but I think the impact of the guys they got is pretty significant.
I like it. Peyton Tolley was on the Shock Factor podcast recently, and it was very entertaining. Him and Steven are kind of birds of a feather. I would say Peyton Tolley's he's like kind of a country version of Steven Shock, and I mean that as a great compliment. There was a very meaty part of the conversation, no pun intended, where they talked about how many nuggets they could eat in one sitting. It was quite entertaining. And etiquette on sauces. It was fantastic. But Peyton Tolley's mom she went to Wichita State in the heyday. So his mom is like a huge college baseball fan. And like that's how he ended up at Wichita State. And I love that. I love that here's a kid that grew up loving college baseball because his mom experienced the Shockers back in the heyday.
Yeah, she actually, it's really interesting during their whole transfer process. Like her and the family were actually like keeping me updated on like, hey, here's where he's going to visit and all that. So like in this day and age, I actually really appreciate that kind of transparency. That does not shock me.
Yeah. Awesome. Fitzy, what are you going with? What's a transfer class that jumps out for you?
So I'm going to cheat, Runes, but there's a reason for
it.
There's a method to my madness here, because these two are kind of linked. Florida State and Ole Miss both had shockingly bad seasons last year, right? Like missed their conference tournaments. These powerhouse programs that are always so consistent. Both of them really, really, really got after it with the transfer market and totally transformed their rosters. And to the point that I'm confident that both these teams are going to be regional teams this year. It wouldn't surprise me if both went up as top 25 teams this year. But in Ole Miss's case, I mean, it's really, they lost basically all the guys who were everyday position players 2 years ago in the winter, all are now gone. Over the last 2 years, those guys have all left. I believe. And so you're left with, all these gaping holes around the diamond, and they plugged them, I thought, very, very well. Shortstop, you had to replace Jacob Gonzalez. We bring in Luke Hill from Arizona State. They love him. I think he's going to be a big star there. You get Andrew Fisher from Duke, who was just a dynamite freshman hitter, that I think Duke was kind of stunned to lose. Just an impact left-handed bat. You bring in a veteran like Jackson Ross from FAU, who's going to hit in the middle of the order, just a very accomplished run producer. And then Trayson Hughes from Mercer, who brings a lot of tools to the outfield and performance. And, there's others too, arms that will contribute, Kyler Carmack and Liam Doyle, Ryan Rodriguez. I mean, they really bolstered their roster. And then Florida State, I mean, obviously they had a lot of flaws. That team last year was not good. And the main thing though was on the mound, and they really, really improved to the mound with, I think, the best JUCO arm in the class, Gavin Adams, and Cam Leiter from UCF. These are two guys who are going to be mid to high 90s with real secondary stuff. Like could be Friday night, Saturday night guys that stand up against anybody. If they can harness it now. I mean, the walk rate was a little high for Leiter last year. Adams, neither of them is a finished product, but the upside's through the roof with those two guys. So that's super exciting. And then Carson Dorsey was another one of the top JUCO arms in this class, lefty that totally different look, like funky over the top, but it's good stuff. And I think that's a really nice piece. He could start, he could be in the bullpen. And then they just, Noah Short, they brought in low slot joker who's like a classic Florida State. How many times have Florida State had like a Chase Haney or one of these like low slot jokers at the back of the bullpen? Like he'll fit right in.
South Carolina always had those in the heyday. Yeah, you got to have a low slot joker.
Yeah, and then they just, again, the lineup. I mean, all these infield spots are open. You bring in an Alex Lodice, a Drew Farrow. That's probably going to be their middle infield. Marco Dinges, I think, is probably going to be DH/catcher, like get hit for power, going to be a key bat. They did very well. Both those teams, I think, had quantity as well as quality.
I like it. I'm going to go West Coast. Oregon State had a small class. They were ranked here. Hey, and before I finish, let me do Oregon State first. it's small, but like they got the right pieces. You know, they got a shortstop, so Travis Bazzana can stay at second, and they can have a freshman phenom go play third, and maybe a little less pressure, even though third's hard in college. Elijah Hainline, who was an all Pac-12 kid at Washington State, hit well over 300, double-digit home runs, reliable defender. He'll be a third-year starter. I think they needed one more piece position player wise. They have so many guys back. I mean, we're all very high on the Beavers. Teaser, spoiler alert, they're going to be highly ranked. Like this is a good team, and there's an emotional part to Oregon State this year. They were left for dead conference wise. They're going to be maybe independent the next 2 years, and I just feel like they've got an Omaha run in them. They actually were better in the Baton Rouge regional than you might remember, just because LSU was so. There was just no room in the spotlight for anybody but LSU. But Oregon State they were pretty dang good in that thing. And so Aiden May is the other name. This is a really sexy arm, mid-90s, wicked slider. He did make 16 starts at Arizona last year, but they didn't go very well. It's a 6.5 ERA, but the talent is undeniable. And, it'll be his third year of college baseball. If it clicks, we all think very highly of the pitching coach at Oregon State, Rich Dorman. So I just think Oregon State had a really good team, and they did the right level of shopping in the transfer portal. I just want to encourage everyone. These were really fun pieces to do. Wake Forest is the number 1 class. You got Chase Burns, you got Seaver King. Tennessee's a top 5 class, loaded up with bats. A good offense went nuclear. LSU I thought was going to be the number 1 class, and Wake Forest kind of beat them out. Arkansas's got a great, Wahiva Aloy from Sacramento State and Mason Molina from Texas Tech. So, it's fun. The transfer classes are fun. I thought we would just touch on them tonight because they get a lot of the transfers on the way. But let me do this, boys. Let me transition us to the freshmen, because one of the things that's happening in college baseball is less and less high school kids are getting drafted and signing. The draft is smaller. 20 years ago, we were losing between 180 to 200 high school kids to pro baseball right out of the chute. They'd sign. Last year was 95. 2 years ago was 88 kids. So it's cut in half, which means we're getting really good players to college baseball. What an awesome opportunity. And so what I wanted to do tonight is let's each pick 3 freshmen. Now that we've seen, we're reading fall reports. By the way, we had over 100 fall reports. How cool is that? One of my favorite things that we do. So Kendall, I'll start with you and we'll go around the horn. Let's talk about some of these freshmen, like who is this year's Ethan Petrie? Who is, this year? I mean, there were so many good freshmen last year. It was crazy. So go ahead, Kendall, kick us off with one. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you one right off the bat, and Gavin Grohovic at A&M. Out of all the freshmen I saw throughout fall workouts, he was the best. It was one of those, you just kind of sit up in your seat, kind of moments when he went to the plate. I mean, he's a real physical guy, 6'2", 220. He looks the part. He was I want to say he played in outfield in high school. They're going to put him at third base. He apparently has been pretty decent there. He was actually pretty good there the night I was there against U of H. But, just a really confident offensive approach, big-time power. Everything off his bat was just really hard hit, great instincts. And, I've kind of said this in our reports, but, from just a sheer physical standpoint, he reminds me a lot of Josh Young when he was a freshman at Texas Tech. And Jim Schlossnagle will agree with that. He obviously hopes he's as good as Josh Young. But, it's not quite the same feeling I got Dylan Cruz's freshman year, but it was pretty damn close. It was one of those things where you're like, wow, this guy's going to be really good. And the last guy that I saw that looked like that in the fall was Jaslav Alette last year, and he obviously had a pretty good freshman year.
I love it. Kendall, can I just go? I mean, Josh Young is an aggressive comp, right? That was the number 10 pick in the draft. I mean, when I say aggressive, that's a big compliment. I'm going to go even more bold than that. Fitzy, I was going to use the word boldacious right there. What's the word? Is it bodacious? What's the word?
Yeah, it's definitely not boldacious, although I love that. I might have to make that.
I thought you were about to copy Mike Trout or something.
I think you're looking for audacious. Audacious.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted bold and audacious put together.
Boldacious
For
is great.
Thank you.
Can we please make this trend on Twitter or the X,
Yes.
if you will?
That will get into getting into a
Well,
conference preview. You can count on it.
What's really funny about, or kind of interesting about Grahovic is, I mean, imagine trying to pitch to him, Brady Montgomery, and Jay Slavallette in the middle of that lineup.
No,
Good
luck.
I want to hear the boldacious comp, please. Ruth.
Oh, like when you described him, Kendall, he's a little short for this, but when you described him, where my brain went, Pat Burrell, Bat Burrell, like kind of a big physical, right-handed California, field a hit, strength, and kind of positionless. Like they're hoping he can play third. You know, people have talked about him catching. He's probably not as big as Burrell, though.
He's more of a bull rider physique than Burrell. I feel like Burrell was kind of like a.
It's not helping the Pennsylvania.
What does that mean?
Kendall. What do you got? What's a bull rider?
What is a bull rider physique?
like a little more built up, a little more thick. I feel like Burrell just kind of had almost like a model build or something.
That's big model. Yes.
You kind of remind me of Fitt, you know.
I get that a lot. I get that a lot.
The Pat Burrell comp. That's what your wife says every day, huh?
Either way, I can't wait to see Grahovic play. I am super pumped for him. Yep. Fitzy, who are you going with?
I got a good one for you, Coach Rooney. I mean, I guess if we're going to be provincial, let's be provincial. Please. I got a Duke guy for you. Marcus Johnson. Kyle Johnson.
Wow.
Kyle Johnson is going to win Freshman of the Year this year.
Whoa.
There, I said it.
In the ACC or nationally?
In the United States of America.
Wow, okay. Sweet, I'm intrigued.
Guy is a freak. He's a two-way player. 6'1", 205. He's physical and ultra athletic. Left-handed pitcher. I saw 92, 95 with command and feel from the left side with a plus changeup. And, I didn't see a great curveball, but apparently he over the course of the fall really developed a good slider too. I think he's going to pitch in their weekend rotation, and we know how good their staff is. It's going to be an elite pitching staff. And this guy's good enough to pitch in the weekends for this team and also start in right field. And it's a quality at bat machine, discipline, uses all fields, hits the ball with authority. This guy's a stud. And I'm shocked that he wasn't higher ranked and higher profile coming out of high school. I mean, he was a top 150 guy for PBR, but I think he's going to walk out of here as a really special player. You know, those two-way guys, like if you're a great two-way guy as a freshman, you'd be a 3-time All-American, right? Like as a McKay or an AJ Reed or one of these guys who just like, there's not that many great two-way players around. And I think this guy's got a chance to be.
I love it. When we did the rankings conversation, which I'm going to not try to give away things, I may struggle, but I liked you know how it goes when we're having these really intense rankings discussions. There are teams that you have a feeling coming in that changes. Sometimes it's you feel less good, sometimes more good. Better, I guess is the English word for that. More good and boldacious will coming to you in a conference preview soon. The Duke was a team that I came in a little like maybe lukewarm is the best way I could say it. I came in way more convicted than I started, so I like it. I'm gonna go SEC. Dylan Cupp, I think, is going to be the starting shortstop at Mississippi State. I don't know if that's going to happen like day one, but I think there's going to get to a point where he's too good not to play. He is like a more instinctual Casey Martin to me. And remember Casey Martin from Arkansas, where it's like a little guy with tools, like he could play football, running back. He's like physical and twitchy and fast. And he probably needs to slow himself down a little bit. I saw him in some high school events, but I just think Dylan Cupp is really talented. He's the type of kid that can be hard to get to campus. I think he's going to be too good not to play. And with freshmen, we're always predicting things, and it's hard to be a freshman and play college baseball nowadays because you're playing against 23-year-olds. But I'm smitten with Dylan Cupp. Like, it's just everything about his game. He's confident. He's swaggy. He's physical. He's fast. I'm in on Dylan Cupp. Kendall, you're up.
Yeah, I'm going to stick in the SEC and talk about Jake Brown. You're going to hear me talk a lot about this guy throughout the year. And I'll tell you what, he's another guy that, first at bat, I saw the Purple and Gold series. I was like 100% sold. And that does not happen very often. 6'2", 190, left-handed hitter. What's really interesting about Jake Brown is he runs like a deer, really good instincts in the outfield. Everything off his bats, very hard contact. But what's really interesting is I was talking to a couple of coaches who recruited him out of high school, and they actually think he'll end up being a better pitcher than he'll be a position player. And if he's that good as a position player, I can only imagine what he is as a pitcher. I talked to Jay Johnson about this in the fall, about him as a potential pitcher, and he's like, yeah, he's got a lot of potential there, but like we don't really need him in that role. So maybe it's one of those things, Jay really likes to do this. Maybe it's one of those things where they kind of just build him up to pitch next year and don't really rush it with him this year because they don't necessarily need it. So, as intriguing as he is offensively for this year, I'm very curious to see what he's able to do on a two-way front, potentially in 25, but we'll see. I mean, if let's say he's throwing 95, 97 in January from the left side, I find it very hard to believe that he's going to go, you know what, let's let him marinate a little bit for one more year.
I will say this. I was talking with Josh Jordan about him, the LSU recruiting coordinator, at the convention this week. And he had dropped a very intriguing comp. He comped him to Charlie Blackmon, a long time, big league outfielder, Georgia Tech star. And if he's Charlie Blackmon, then I have a feeling he's going to be mostly a position player. It sounds like he's just a super talented dude who can do a lot of stuff, but the sound like the bat is really special.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that he's a better pitcher than what I saw, but we'll see.
Love it. Fitzy, what are you going with here?
I'm going to give you – can I give you a sleeper guy?
Yeah, I've got a couple that I want to stick my neck out on too. So you're gonna let's do that.
This is from a class that did not make our top 25 recruiting classes, but just missed. Like we talked at length about Maryland's recruiting class. I think, I don't think they had any guys even in the PBR rankings. But like they loved their freshman class. And I think Chris Hakopian, I didn't see, he was banged up when I was in town. He's going to probably start at third base for him right away. He's very athletic. Jordan Crosland, like really, really exciting, physical, explosive athlete with power and speed. Can play some short, can play some outfield. He'll probably play outfield on this team. But the guy that I kind of really liked, like is an all fit type guy is Braden Martin. And I think he probably winds up, I believe, playing second base. They're going to start him in the outfield, I believe, on this team because of their personnel. But Matt Swope, their first year head coach, thinks this guy's got a chance to be just an elite leadoff man as his career unfolds. Really good feel for the barrel, runs well, lots of competitive at bats and deep counts. Not a real big guy, but a twitchy, quick, fun athlete who can run. He's going to be a fun player to watch, I think.
Oh, that's a good one. That is a good one. Gosh, I have so many choices right now. All right, let me put a bow on my Oregon State. I am a Beaver aficionado right now. I think we all are. They're going to be really good. They got a kid to campus, Trent Caraway, by perfect game. He was the number 3 ranked player to get to campus, so he's probably like number 20 overall in the class. Played at J. Sarah Catholic High School in Orange County, which is in the Trinity League, which is the best league in high school baseball, right? It's Mater Dei and Servite and Orange Lutheran. I mean, it's like ridiculous, the high school league he plays in. J. Sarah Catholic is Royce Lewis, Chase Strumpf, the catcher, Hedges, Austin Hedges, right? Like they're just loaded every year. It's all Division I players. And Trent Caraway, 6'2", 200 pounds. He's a shortstop. Like it's instincts. He's physical. I mean, that's like football physicality. 6'2", 200 pounds. It's unbelievable bat speed. The other thing I like is he just does not play like a prima donna, like superstar. He plays like he's mad at somebody. Like he plays like somebody just slapped him before the game. I love it. It's like really borderline angry. Kendall, I might, again, I've never met the kid. The bar fight meter on this kid's got a yeah, like talent and bar. Kendall, you know what happens when talent meets bar fight meter. I mean,
really good things happen, Runes.
Yes, that's right. So Trent, that's right. Well said. Trent Caraway will play third base for Oregon State. I think he slides over to shortstop after, Hainline will get drafted this year. Man, I'm smitten with him. I'm all in on Trent Caraway. 1 R on Caraway, by the way. Caraway. I misspelled that. Yeah, I misspelled it in my fall report. That's how much I love him. There you go. J. Sarah Lions. Kendall, are you up for round 3?
Yeah, I've got a good one for you. I'm going to go into the Big 12. Yes, the Big 12.
Yes.
And the Houston Cougars. They joined the Big 12 this year. Keep an eye on Ace Reese, kid out of Canton, Texas. Really good-looking player. He's one of those guys that during in and out batting practice, he stands out. 6'3", 200 pounds, right-handed hitter. Had a couple of hits against A&M, hit an absolute bomb early in the game against A&M on about a 92-mile-an-hour heater. I'm guessing that thing probably went 420, 430. Just a really talented-looking player. I mean, checks a lot of boxes. I was talking to Todd Whitting about him in the fall, and he thought that he was just an instant, massive impact type of player. And frankly, guys, this is no secret. Like, this is a big year for Houston. This is a transition year to a new conference. They the last couple of seasons after the rough 21 season, they started to pick things up a little bit. Now they go into a tougher league. They're going to need guys like him to make an instant impact. And he's one of those kids that I could see, hitting 300, 320 with 10 and 12 home runs. And actually, Todd, I don't necessarily see this as much as Todd, but Todd kind of likened him a little bit to Jace Lavalette. Lavallette's taller, but the athleticism, the tool set is most certainly there. So keep an eye on Ace Reese, the Canton kid.
It's a great name, isn't it? Where's Canton, Texas, Kendall? Please tell me that's arch rivalry of cut and shoot.
Not quite. Southeast of Dallas. They're actually – so Canton, Texas is actually known for having the largest flea market in the world.
We have learned
it's
a lot.
It's ridiculous, dude. So I went there as a kid once. And I mean, it's just it's like hillside after hillside of flea markets. It's incredible. And it's not like crap. It's fine woodworking, and it's all this ultra fancy crafts and stuff. It's kind of interesting, actually.
I like it. I'm learning a lot this podcast. I'm learning that Canton, Texas is the flea market capital of the world. I learned that
Google Canton trade days. It's kind of crazy to look at pictures of how big it is.
I'm in. I learned that boldacious is not a word, which that was disappointing.
But should be.
Yeah. Or I can just pretend it is
better than bodacious, though. I like boldacious.
Yeah, that's what we're going with. Yeah, that's.
I know. I like that better. It sounds better. I think we should just change it.
Done. Put it on a Steven Schock T-shirt.
We'll put that in the D1Baseball style guide.
Thank you. Fitzy, I've got 4 players left on my board. Even if you pickpocket me, I still win. My board is chock full of talent.
I won't pick your pocket. Well, I mean, I've got lots of players on my board too. I feel like I have to at least mention the name Drew Burris because he's just a can't miss superstar for Georgia Tech. And he's I love it. I asked Danny Hall specifically, does he remind you of anyone? And he dropped the Jay Payton comp, and he was reluctant to do it because that's that's one of the great players in program history. He said, but this guy throws better than Jay. But don't tell Jay I said that. That was what Danny said. He
told the world he said.
I know. I just totally threw Danny under the bus. But this guy is a stud, man. It's just like a smaller, compact athlete who hits for power and he's going to hit for average. He's going to play center field and probably lead off, but he's going to be a monster college player. But the guy I wanted to throw at you. See, I cheated again. Look at me. So boldacious.
You're carrying 2 4-irons like the great Dave Neal right now, Fitzy.
Nice reference. I wanted to give you another sleeper guy because he's not a famous player, but a guy that's going to be, I think, a really good college player. Justin LeBron is going to be the starting shortstop at Alabama as a true freshman. And it's not a guy that, I don't even think he was on the PBR list. I don't think he was ranked. Kind of flew under the radar, but like Rob Vaughn mentioned to me this fall, he's like, this guy will do things. And you're like, why is this guy here? Like what happened here? How is this guy on campus? Because he's 6'2", 170, soaking wet. He's super just kind of rangy and instinctive, like a through the roof baseball IQ, really looks the part at shortstop, can really throw. And there's surprising whip in the swing. It sounds like, they think this guy's going to drive the ball as he fills out that lanky frame, but he really can defend, and it sounds like special makeup, and just a guy that kind of slipped through the cracks a little bit, maybe on the showcase circuit, but sounds like a star to me.
That's awesome. I'm gonna empty my board on you guys, and then I'll give you my player. I've got 4 guys left. Luke Stevenson, Fitzy, I've heard you rave about him. Like he's going to be the catcher day 1 at North Carolina. It just sounds like a first round pick, right? Like he's physical and he's big and he's talented and he's just like North Carolina's had a million of these dudes, right? Like they just check every box, and you're lucky to get him to campus.
Yeah, and Campbell Smithwick, I don't know if he's on your list, but
I
put him in that from Ole Miss. He'd be in that same category. He's going to be a catcher from day 1, 3-year starter, probably a first-round pick in 3 years. Like those 2 guys for me are in a similar category.
Yeah, and whereas Luke Stevenson is just a vintage North Carolina recruit, like they just get first-round picks to campus, Liam Peterson is a vintage first-round right-handed pitcher at, guess where? The University of Florida. Like they just get first-round arms to campus. Like I don't know how that happens, but what's the expression? Do your job, scouts. What are you doing? I'm teasing, of course. Like I'm sure scouts would love to have signed this kid, but like he's big and throws a million and pitchable and just like another great right-handed weekend rotation arm at Florida. Like that is so on brand for the Gators. Another elite starter. A kid that I've loved as I've learned. Stanford's going to be an interesting team for our audience and for college baseball fans to get their arms around. They just got, it's a reset year for Stanford. Let's just call a fish. And it's going to be a lot of new faces. And on the pitching staff, they have a freshman. Their freshman class, Stanford's freshman class is uber talented on the mound, like super good freshman arms. But the one that was a little under the radar, who's kind of run past some of those other higher ranked kids, Christian Lim, is a kind of 6'1" left-handed pitcher. It's 91, 92, and like he's borderline arrogant on the mound, like really confident and got that winner gene. And when I say arrogant on the mound, I mean that is the highest compliment I can give. Like that's exactly who I want on the mound. So Christian Lim, I can't wait to see. He may be their Sunday starter when it kicks off. They'll have Matt Scott and Nick Dugan. The name I want to give you guys is not a starter yet, but I'm just telling you he's going to be a starter. This is what I think. I think Ryder Helfrich is going to be the starting catcher for Arkansas as a freshman. California kid. It's just really good. He's just a good player. And I think it's scary to start a freshman at catcher in the SEC, but I think the SEC West is going to have a couple of them. You mentioned Smithwick, Fitzy, and then I love what I've seen and what I hear about Ryder Helfrich. Yeah. And I think eventually he's going to be too good not to play.
I totally agree. Well, I think he's going to play regardless of if he's catching or not. I think when I was there this fall, he was actually playing third base, which they had some guys out of position. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but he's a catcher. I mean, that's what he profiles as. He's going to be a really good catcher, but he's definitely going to hit, and he's going to hit right away. I mean, I'd be shocked if he's not, in the lineup a lot as a freshman. They just have like so many catchers on that roster, and a lot of them are older, but he might, even as a young kid, he might be the best of the bunch. So I'm with you. I love that call, Roots. Love that call.
Yeah. I'm in on him. So the freshmen I encourage the listeners, like we're a little bit ahead of you because we're writing stuff, but as the top 25 freshman classes are going to be on the website as you're listening to this, they're already on there. And they're so fun, like getting to learn some of these names. Remember, better players are getting to campus than we've seen in a long time. And that is so exciting for the future of the sport. It's really awesome. That said, we've got the freshman rankings, the transfer rankings we referenced. The rankings will drop on Tuesday, the 16th. That means that the write-ups of those teams are coming. Conference previews are coming. This is I don't know that there's a more fun time of the year. You're going to be able to read reports with the word boldacious in it. I mean, where else are you going to get that?
If you Kendall, don't sneak that into your A10 write-ups, at least sneak it in somewhere there, I'm going to be disappointed.
If you don't think the St. Joe's Hawks, the Hawk will never die. If you don't think the Hawks are getting a boldacious reference, Fitzy, you are sadly mistaken. Kendall, you're on the coupon beat. What do you got for these people? What kind of coupon you got for the people of America?
So you can use Save 30 to get 30% off an annual subscription, or you can input Fitt 90 to add 90% to your subscription total. I recommend the Fitt 90. It's a great deal.
Oh, the Fitt 90. The type in 2 4-irons.
I'll tell you this,
Runes,
though,
check it out.
guys.
Go ahead.
The Fit 90 is always going to be a hard 90. I'm going to tell you that right now.
No
You're not going
question.
to lollygag it up the line, baby.
Yep. And
Runes,
if
I have
you're,
a
if you're,
question.
go ahead, Kendall.
Can I replace plethora in my season preview reports with boldacious?
Sure.
Can that be used in that context?
Absolutely.
100%.
Okay.
Boldacious is very versatile. It's just, you got to get Boldacious's bat in the lineup, Kendall. If you got to play it in left field, first base, do it.
The greatest thing about this, Kendall, is we run the show. If we want boldacious to be a word in D1 baseball, then doggone it, it's going to be a word.
Yeah, 100%.
like it.
So as Kendall said, type in something and get 20% off at checkout. Type in
Next
Kurt
week
Reed
the code will
just
be
for fun.
boldacious 30.
Boldacious 30.
Thank you. But don't get left behind. Now is the time. This season is going to be on us before you know it, and you are going to want to sink your teeth into all this preview stuff. It is so fun. We'll have the preview or the top 25 podcast coming next week. We'll have to do our draft on teams. We'll have to do our fantasy draft on players. Our stock market draft that Fitzy ran away with last year. Really
Did he actually
bothers
run
me.
away with it?
I did, actually.
I think he won, but I don't think he ran away with it.
I think it was fairly convincing.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
If UCLA didn't have all those injuries, the fabulous Rune Dogs were destined for a big season.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like 2 of my 4 starting pitchers were out with arm injuries, so that's not fair.
Guys,
Check your pitching
of course
program.
it's fair. You got to develop your arms, Raj. What are you doing?
Yeah, sorry,
Hire
my fault.
Nate Yeski. Kendall.
Can I just interject? I'm sorry. I know we're trying to wrap it up, but late breaking news. Apparently, there's a dialectical British definition of the word boldacious.
Really?
Brazen or impudent is what I'm told. It is probably a blend of bold and audacious, is what Merriam-Webster tells me.
Brazen, exactly what I'm going for. Boldacious.
So all this time we thought Runes was being creative. In reality, he was just Googling old English words.
There you go.
Just channeling my inner Englishman.
The Queen's English.
I challenge. I don't buy this. This is not a real thing.
I love it. Well, as you can tell, this is loopy season, and we're going to embrace it. We're going to lean into it. Gentlemen, this was fun. Well done. Well played. Very boldacious of you. Everyone have a great week, and we will catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.